Just my quick reaction to the AJ Usyk press conference. The title of the event is called Rage on the Red Sea. A lot of people complain about that. Yeah, it doesn't sound that great, but I've heard worse. It's this weekend in Jeddah. Now, I made a mistake in a previous video when I was talking about the time I spent in the Middle East. I've never been to Saudi Arabia, but I've been in the Middle East around that region. For some reason, I mistook Jeddah for Riyadh. Riyadh is in the middle of the country because I was talking about how hot it is, and I was saying that for this fight, AJ's, I guess, in the middle of the country, inland, so I don't know what the climate is like there compared to on the coast. But no, Jeddah's actually on the coast. It's just on the opposite coast of the Arabian Peninsula to the one that I was on. So you got Dubai and Qatar and all those countries which are on the east coast of the Arabian Peninsula, whereas Jeddah is on the west coast of the Arabian Peninsula on the Red Sea. So anyway, just wanted to clear that up. Now, as far as the press conference itself, it was the usual fare. AJ, people saying he looks slim. He does look slim to me. I'll be very interested to see what he weighs in at. Usyk doesn't look anywhere close to what people are saying he weighs. They said that he gained 15 kilos, which is like close to 40 pounds in weight. No, unless this guy had dropped as low as 180 pounds, and now he's put 40 pounds back on to get back up to 220. I don't see how. He certainly hasn't gained 40 pounds since the last fight. That's for sure. That Usyk is not 260. So I think that's a little bit overblown with regards to the weight that Usyk has put on. I'd be interested to see what he weighs, but I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. So yeah, that's Alexander Usyk. AJ, he appears pretty relaxed, I would say. Doesn't seem to be on edge. Maybe with the pressure off him, he's feeling more relaxed because he's not the champion at the moment, because he's the challenger. And also, there comes a point in a fighter's career when they've lost enough times that they actually lose. They're free from the fear of losing. Now, that might sound like a bad thing to some people. You're not afraid to lose. That means you're not going to try as hard not to lose. But sometimes the anxiety of, the fear of losing makes you so anxious that can actually negatively impact your performances. Some fighters need to not care about winning and losing in order to get the best out of themselves. They just want to go in there and compete and do their best. And obviously they want to win, but they're not afraid of losing. You see what I'm saying? So for some fighters, the fear of losing actually makes them better. But for other fighters, it can be a hindrance. Fighters who are maybe of a bit more of a anxious disposition, the fear of losing can actually hinder them in some instances. Maybe AJ's like that. I don't know. I'm speculating here. But somebody who I always thought was like that was Audley Harrison. Now, I know we've all got our views about Audley Harrison and how good he was and wasn't. But I always felt as though one of the main psychological barriers for Audley was his fear of losing. It hindered him. It made him terrified in the ring a lot of the times. And like I say, that hindered his performance. If he wasn't as afraid of losing, and a lot of it was the pressure that he put on himself, because Audley would talk big and I'll win a world title or win a British title in the first however many professional fights. He put so much pressure on himself and talked himself up so much that he actually made himself anxious, because now you got to go and live up to all your big talk. I think Audley would have been much better off if it just, and I know from a promotional perspective, this is kind of counterproductive, but from a winning fights perspective, I think it would have been better for Audley to just keep his mouth shut. You know what I mean? Don't put all that pressure on yourself. And I think he would have performed better. Is AJ like that? I mean, he doesn't mouth off like Audley did, but people put pressure on him. People put him in these conversations for fighting Wilder and Fury, and is he really the best heavyweight out there? You got the Americans who don't really rate AJ. I mean, even now, Evander Holyfield was saying that Fury's the best fighter in the world, and maybe Fury is the best fighter in the world, but I can't help but feeling, particularly with the Americans, that it's a situation where if you haven't done it in their country, they don't really believe in you. That seems to be a common thing in the United States. That if you haven't done it in their country, you can't be the real deal. It doesn't matter who you fought. So I think that Holyfield and many of the Americans out there are actually underestimating how good Usyk is, because Holyfield was just totally dismissing Usyk's chances against Fury and this kind of thing. Like I said, I just think he's underestimating how good Usyk is, because subconsciously Americans feel as though if you haven't done it in America, you can't be that good. So that's my take on that. And as I say, the press conference was pretty mundane, routine stuff. Usyk's manager, or is it his promoter? Who it was? It was one of these guys who was interpreting. But they were also saying that in training camp, Usyk was doing some crazy stuff like cycling for however many hours in 40-degree heat, swimming for 5 hours, and holding his breath for 4 minutes, and all these superhuman feats. So I don't know what that was all about, whether it was just him expressing how impressed he was with Usyk in training camp, or whether it's them trying to get under AJ's skin psychologically or something, making him feel like he's facing a superhuman. I don't know. Robert Garcia spoke briefly. I'd like to hear more from Garcia, to be honest with you, because I'm interested from a tactical perspective in what Garcia has in mind for AJ in this fight. And I think the best thing to do, at least for me, is to study Garcia's former fighters or current fighters, because you might get an idea of what he might want AJ to emulate to some extent. And I'll come on to that in a separate video. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought in the comments below about the press conference, what AJ said, what Usyk said, what the team said. Again, there was no real trash talk or anything like that. So Usyk looked his normal, eccentric, happy, relaxed self. AJ looked very relaxed to me. There was no real anxiousness there. I thought he looked a lot more anxious the first time they came face to face for the rematch, the kickoff press conference in Saudi Arabia. To me, AJ looked kind of anxious there, but here he looks relaxed, and that's how he's going to need to be. So that's my take on it. Give me your take in the comments below.